I love it.
I'm sure he does as well.
Not meant to admit that.
Fabulous. Okay, Di, good morning. Oh,
Good
where's
morning.
Scott gone? Come on, Scott. Poke your head round the corner. I know you're still eating your breakfast. Good morning. Morning,
Good.
Di. What are we up to today?
Okay, well, the first things first, has anybody got any questions regarding Module 1? Good, okay. Then we are going to start off this morning, because I generally do this on Module 1, but I'm going to do it now, because I'm going to ask you the same question again at the end of this course, all right? I would like you, please, in the chat box, on a scale of 0 to 10, if somebody was to ring you today and say, I want to become a driving instructor, okay, between 0 and 10, where 0 is, well, I'm not answering that phone, to 10, yep, I'm up for this, I'm really confident, I'm going to smash it. Where would you be? So in the chat box, please. So 0, please don't call me. 10, I'm confident, I'm ready and up for it.
Nice, Lisa. Nice, Scott.
Where's the chat box?
Down the bottom.
Down the bottom, there should be.
But
at
how
the
do I
bottom of
type
your
it?
screen.
Just tap on it, Brian, and then
Yeah.
you'll see a little
Nope.
nice. Only 9, Jeanette.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jeanette, you've been
Wow.
smashing it already. So
I was going to say, I've
Can't
got
hear
3
you,
little
Jeanette,
dots
you're
because I'm
really-
using an iPad. It says more. 3 little
I
dots with more.
didn't want to put 10 in. Be
but
too
you know you
cocky.
are.
Be too cocky about it.
Nice.
really
Nice to
nice
see
to
some
see.
confidence.
The next question I need to ask all of you are you on the ticket map? Now, the reason I'm asking that is because we are having inquiries coming in thick and fast.
Okay.
And it's my job to place everybody. If you're not on the map, that's my go-to place. If you're not on the map, you ain't going to get them. All right. So if you're not, you need to have a chat with Sarah at some time. And she'll get you.
Is this the ticket map, Di?
Yes, it is, Jeanette. Yeah.
Format.
No, ticket map.
Just the
Yeah.
ticket map.
Yeah.
Does that, you need to have your logo sorted before you put it on that, or is it just a company name?
No. All I need from anyone is just their name
Right.
and their postcode. The other details that go on the ticket map are a link to the driving instructor training course.co.uk website where they can fill in a form, put in their postcode, and if they prefer a preferred trainer. So if they've seen you on the map and they think, yep, no, I want, for example, Jeanette Kelly, they'll put that detail in at the bottom. If they don't mind who contacts them, then Di then refers to that map and looks for the nearest ticket train and will contact them with the contact details. So if you're not on the ticket map, if you can just put your full name and your postcode in the chat to me, I can make
Okay.
sure that you're on there.
Cool. Thank you, Sarah.
Brilliant.
Good. So we've got some nice numbers down there, guys. Not bad at all, which is very nice to see. I will be asking you the same question at the end of these 14 sessions. And hopefully some of those lower numbers will come up a little bit. Good. Okay. Right. So module 1, we had a look at the consultation. We had a look at the course book, and we had a look at module 1. So today we're moving now into module 2. So the first thing we're going to do is pick up a course book. We are going to have a look at content of ticket online In my book, it's page 7. It might be slightly different in yours, but it will be around about there. Somebody finds it and can give us a page number, that would be good.
Page 7.
Thank you. Everyone found it?
Page 8 in mine, I think. Content of ticket online.
Yeah. Is it 8 on yours, Nick?
Module 1 to 13, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah.
This will always be our starting point. So if you want to mark that page so you can find it easily, that might be quite good. But we're having a look at module 2. We're going to have a look and see what was triggered by you putting in that feedback form, because this is the online material that they will get after you hit that submit button on the feedback form. All right. So we're looking at module 2. So they were going to get an email with a link to a webinar on how to prepare for the session, an email with a link to a webinar about the hazard perception test on the part 1 exam, an email link to a webinar on the instructor's use of controls, and an email with a link to a webinar on rapport. So they're getting quite a lot of online material this time round. Okay, so if we now turn to the course book on module 2, the start of module 2, again in my book it's 23, it might be different in yours. So we are going to now have a look at module 2 from the PDI's point of view. All right, so basically the work they need to do between session 1 and session 2 are the action plans that they went away with from session 1. So they've got that to have a look at. They've got their online material, which they'll get via email, and any exercises that come up in module 2. Okay. So that's the work that they're going to be carrying out between seeing you in the in-car session 1 and seeing you again in the in-car session 2. So it says content in this module, you will continue to develop your driving skills, develop your ability to give a commentary whilst driving, practice for your part 1 with the Driving Test Success online app. You will also be developing your ability to give instruction, completing exercise 3, giving basic instruction, planning a lesson on pedestrian crossings, practicing for your part 1 by watching a video on the hazard perception test, watching a video on the instructor's use of controls, and watching a video on rapport. So they've got quite a lot to do. So it says developing your driving skills, continue to focus on your driving, read the highway code, know your traffic signs, and driving the essential skills. Developing your ability to give a commentary whilst driving, continue to talk out loud whilst you are driving. Exercise 3, giving basic instruction, explains how to give structure to your commentary. And we spoke about this last time. So eventually we want that alert, inform, instruct, which we also know is guided instruction. Assess your driving and commentary against a developed driving assessment form in module 2, and we will find that at the end of module 2. So we're asking them to go out in the car, practice their driving, practice their commentary driving, so that we're getting a little bit of practice behind what we've already started. And then it's got a short paragraph there about planning lessons. We only give them a couple of diagrams in CarSet. It's a sample. What we encourage our PDIs to do is to actually put their own lesson plan portfolio together. And sorry. Sometimes we are asked, why do I have to do this? why can't I just go and buy a lesson plan from the DIA or on eBay? Because I can probably pick up lesson plans for about £5 on eBay, you know. Can anybody give me an answer to that? Why do we say not at the moment? We don't mind what they do later on, but why do we say not at the moment? Nick?
Because they don't really learn from that, I don't think, because it's already there and they can just work to that. They don't understand the why it needs to be in that order.
Fantastic, good, thank you, Nick. There is an awful lot of rubbish stuff out there, isn't there? Yeah. If they go and buy a set of lesson plans from eBay, we can already imagine what the quality of that is going to look like. Driving instruction has moved on from where it was. You know, so what we want them to do is not only have the lesson plans in case they need them, but in those lesson plans, just by reading up on these subjects, just by making notes on these subjects, by putting this structure together, they are going to learn far more than learning somebody else's words. We're going to ask them to take photos of their local area, have a look on Google Maps, and have a look on Google for particular types of roundabouts that they might have in their area. So it actually gives them a bigger picture of what is involved in delivering a driving lesson, rather than picking up a set of diagrams that somebody else has put together and learning what is written on that bit of paper.
Yeah.
All right. Now, what they do once they go out on a training license is completely up to them, because the work is already done. But they will be able to look at those lesson plans and decide, yes, I like the look of those, or no, I don't like the look of those. But we don't want them starting off on the wrong foot. All right. So it says throughout the ticket course, you'll be building a portfolio of lesson plans. Start by thinking about preparing a lesson on pedestrian crossings. Build up a stock of resources such as photos of local situations and newspaper cuttings, as well as looking in the publications for relevant pieces of information and pictures relating to the subject. Read Practical Teaching Skills and the Driving Instructor's Handbook. Consider how different types of people might benefit from the way you deliver this lesson. Read the DVSA National Driving Syllabus, which is in your ticket resource pack. So in session 1, we looked at learning styles. So they should now be able to understand what we mean by consider how different types of pupil might benefit from the way you deliver the lesson. Yeah, we should already be able to start to think about that. Okay, so if we turn over the page, we then can see an outline of what they're going to have in in-class session 2. And of course, we're going to be looking at that in far more depth in a moment. Turning over the page again, we then have exercise 3, giving basic instruction. Now, this exercise actually incorporates part 1, part 2, part 3. And it's a great exercise, because what we're asking them to do is to actually prepare a lesson plan on pedestrian crossings. So there's a theoretical side of it. We're asking them to prepare 10 questions that they might ask. And then we're asking them to actually practice it in the car by putting in that alert, inform, instruct. Sorry, alert. Yeah, alert, inform, instruct. Yeah, good. Okay, so if you want to have a quick skim read through that, you can read it in more detail in your own time, obviously, but just get a bit of an idea of what we're asking to do. As I said to you before, it's always a good idea to do these exercises yourself, so that if your PDIs do ask you questions about it, you've got a bit of insight as to what we're asking them to do. All right, so have a quick read through that.
Okay, Di,
Oh, yes.
when you read that, sorry, just me, so is that something where, say for instance, they would be in the instructor's seat, passenger seat, we'd be driving and they'd mark us on a drive?
On this exercise,
Yeah,
no, they're doing this away from you, Nick.
with
This
one
is-
of their pupils.
That doesn't matter, does it? They could talk to themselves. Yeah.
Okay, just on their own drive.
Yeah. So it's doing their own drive and their commentary. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. They all find
themselves.
commentary so hard, don't they?
Exactly. Yeah, no, they do. And as I said last time, Nick, you know, if they're finding it hard to do a commentary, then there's nothing wrong with you driving initially and then giving your commentary until they get used to it. Yeah. And then they can start to implement it into their driving. We're not expecting them to be brilliant at this, but we do expect them to practice it.
Yeah, okay,
All right.
yeah. Because is it a good idea? Is it a good idea maybe, I don't know, could you get them to do like a planning and awareness lesson with sort of like you in the car? So they're going,
No,
as well?
All of that will come in later on, Nick.
Okay.
Just stick with the course. Yeah, don't try and
Yeah,
add
that's all right.
things to it.
That's fine.
All right, because this is just about think about what the learning outcome of this exercise is, and it is just about giving basic instruction.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so just
Yeah.
stick with the learning outcome.
Will do.
All right, don't sort of try and charge ahead too much.
No.
All right, Jeanette.
What I say to them when they're going out to practice is to make sure they slow their driving down. Go to a practice area and slow their driving down, because they find it really difficult to commentary at a fast speed. So if they slow the driving down, it enables them to get much more information in. And when I'm acting as their kind of pupil, I will drive really slowly again to allow them to get the practice in with their commentary. And again, that goes back to your outcome 3, your competence 3, is the practice area suitable? You know, so you're telling them, you know, that you have to slow things down before you can speed it up.
Yeah.
Great advice, Janet.
Mm.
Like all of these things, you know, it's the same in a driving lesson, isn't it? You know, it's adapting the lesson plan. If somebody's finding it, you just want them stretched without being overwhelmed. So if they're finding it difficult, make it a little bit easier. Yeah. If they're finding it easy, make it a bit more challenging. So it's always trying to find that place where they're just being stretched without being overwhelmed.
Di,
Yes.
can I just ask as well? I take it all these kind of 30 odd videos we got are now, they're all part of the videos contained in this book, yeah?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that first video is, we've already received that, yeah?
Yes, if you've got the 52 webinars or the 30 webinars or whatever they are now.
30 or something like
30.
that, yeah.
Yeah.
Something like
Yes,
that.
Lisa.
I've just messaged Sarah actually. She said she was going to email them over, but I haven't received them. I don't know whether.
I just messaged you back, Lisa. They're on their way to you now and are filling up your inbox.
As we speak.
Yeah, absolutely, as we speak.
No, that's
And,
perfect.
that will be to your solo driver Lisa email.
Thank you.
No worries.
Very sorry, but on that point, I'm sure I emailed you about it, whether you got it. But could I send you another one if you didn't?
Was that for those webinars, Nick?
Was indeed.
I haven't received an email from you, but I can do that for you now. So don't worry about sending me an email. I'll just pop that in.
Ever so grateful.
Just a
Thank you.
No worries. Anyone else need them? Just put your
Yes,
email
please,
address
Sarah.
in
I was
chat.
just going to type you out
Yes,
an email,
please.
but if you could
Just
send
just
them
stick
as
your
well.
email address in chat and I can do that this
Or-
morning.
Right, okay, no problem. Thank
Sorry,
you.
Di. We're
No, no, it's
digressing.
okay. You go for it. It's important.
Yeah.
Yes, Brian.
Just on some of the videos that the PDIs get, things like using their dual controls, things which you're going to discuss in this lesson, I think. I've not had access to those. I've actually had to speak to the PDI and have a look at what he's got, so I know
Right.
what you've
Brian,
told him.
This
So-
is what we're talking about, Brian. If you want those, then put your email address in chat and Sarah will get them sent out to you.
Okay, I mean, I've got the webinars on.
That's all they are. It's just
Start.
those webinars. There's nothing else. We only use what we put in those webinars for our PDIs.
Okay,
All right, so you should have them all. If you had the 52 or the 30, you should have them.
I'll check them again. Thanks.
Yeah, I've got it listed day 1 to day 30. So can I just clarify that that's what it is, please?
That is it.
Yes, it is it. Yeah.
Good. Brilliant. Thank you.
Oh, look.
All right. Anything else? Everyone happy? Good. Okay, brilliant. All right. So if you finish reading that, we turn over the page, then we have the developed driving assessment. Now, if you remember, when we were looking at this module, we actually asked them to go out in the car to practice their driving and to mark themselves against this developed driving assessment. Yeah, so that's what we were talking about. Turning over the page again, you then have the action plan. Oh, yeah, we then have the action plan. So we got an idea what this is now. This doesn't come into play until they're in the car with you. And then after each learning outcome, we're giving them a chance to reflect on each of those practices. All right. And then turning over the page again, you'll see that we're moving into module 3. So normally the action plans denote the end of the module, if you like. Okay, everyone happy with that? So you know what your PDI is doing before they come and see you. All right, so you need to do is stay one step ahead of them, that's all. Yeah, so if you've got a PDI who's just completed session 1, do the work they're doing, have a look at the course book, have a look at your guidance notes, and you just need to stay one step ahead, that's all. You don't need to know the whole book. You will do eventually, but you don't need to know it straight away.
If I may, Di, just
Sorry?
on the developed driving assessment, the
Yes.
scoring criteria there is 0 to 3. Give us a quick ballpark of what 0 to 3 equals, will you?
Yes, of course. So 0 is not doing it at all. Yeah. And
Yeah.
3 is doing it all the time.
So it's just your point of view as to where they sit within that band.
Or their own point of view.
Well,
Brian.
that's gonna differ to theirs. That's the point I'm making.
Well, it's a bit like scaling, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
this is about self-assessment. Yeah, so it doesn't matter at this stage if it's higher than you think it should or lower than you think it should be. As they develop, they will recognize where they are and where they need to go.
Okay.
Yeah, so don't worry about it too much because this is a self-assessment for them.
Okay. I've also found when I'm doing the marking guide on when they're doing a full lesson.
Yeah.
that obviously 0 is not doing it at all. 1's doing it a few times. 2's doing it most of the time, and 3's doing it all the time.
Yeah.
But what's the criteria between the two? I mean, if they miss 1, is that most of the time? Or if they only do it once, is that a few of the time? I mean,
Right. Well, if they have an opportunity to do it 10 times and they do it twice, maybe 3 times, yeah. Then it's not very often, is it?
okay.
Or if they get an opportunity to do it 10 times and they don't do it at all, then it's 0. But if they do it every single 10th time, then that's all the time.
No, I do get that. I mean, my PDI's already been on his part 3, and completely come back with a load of different scores as to how I assessed it, to be fair. So I
Okay.
just wanted some clarification, that's all.
All right. So hopefully, Brian, by the end of this course, you will know these competencies inside out, upside down, how people lose marks, how people gain marks. Because what we have to understand is that when somebody goes onto a part 3 or a standard check, they already have 51 out of 51.
Yeah.
It's only things that they miss or things that aren't quite there that they will actually start to lose marks. So once you know what it is they need in order to get full marks, you will then start to understand why they're losing marks.
Mhm.
Yeah?
Yeah, cool, thank you.
No worries, no worries. That's what these sessions are all about, Brian. Cool, okay. Right, so I'd now like you, please, to turn to your guidance notes. We've had a look at it from the PDI point of view. We're now going to have a look at it from our point of view as a trainer delivering this session. Everyone got it? Give me a thumbs up. Let me know you're with me. Lovely. Good. Righto. So in class session 2, we're first of all going to have a look at the learning outcomes. So these are the learning outcomes that we are delivering on this session. I'm going to exclude that last one because that's what they're going to practice when they go away after doing the session, after filling out their action plan. All right. So if we look at that, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, excluding that last one. All right. So we're going to have a look at those 5 learning outcomes. What needs developing in their driving? How to develop commentary driving skills. How to agree a lesson structure that is appropriate for the pupil's experience and ability. How to build rapport. How to give basic instruction using pedestrian crossings as a platform. So we know they've prepared for that in exercise 3, don't we? We know they've prepared a lesson, or should have prepared a lesson. So there are 5 learning outcomes there. Can anybody spot any of the competencies from the standards check marking form?
Third one.
Third one. Okay. So the third one, how to agree a lesson structure that is appropriate for the pupil's experience and ability. Anybody see any more? Or is that the only one? Who agrees with 1? 5, said C. Really? Okay.
I guess rapport's in there somewhere as well, isn't it?
I thought how to build rapport.
Okay, right. So we need to clarify this, all right? The 5 essential coaching skills, giving basic instructions, the core competencies are all skills that we need in order to deliver the competencies. All right. So they're things that we build into the course because we are building their skill. The competencies are directly from the marking sheet, word for word. Okay, so yes, we're looking at rapport. Yes, we're looking at active listening. Yes, we're looking at core competencies. Yes, we're looking at talk through, prompt, independent, levels of instruction, but they are all incorporated in these competencies, but they're not a competency on their own. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I understand where you're coming from. That's why we needed to clarify it now. All right. So what I would like you to do, please, I'm going to just, I think if you have a look at any module after module 6, and if you have a look just before the action plan on any of those, so module 7 onwards, have a look at the page just before the action plan. you'll find a Part 3 assessment sheet. So if you're ever unsure whether it's a competency or not, this is your first go-to. All right. Now, nowhere on that marking sheet are things like rapport, core competencies, active listening, levels of instruction. Yeah. It's not there. It's just not there. All right. But all of these qualities, all of these skills are taught within the course because they will help them to deliver the competency. Yeah. Right. So we had a look last time, didn't we, about did the trainer identify the pupil's learning goals and needs? Yes. This time we're looking at, was the agreed lesson structure appropriate for the pupil's experience and ability? So it's 1 competence, 5 learning outcomes. Everyone get it? Yeah. So those other 4, if you like, are little bite-sized pieces that are building up to the skill. Yeah, it's not the whole skill, it's just a little bite-sized piece, just a little introduction. And we go deeper and deeper and deeper into it as we go through the course. Okay. But the competency is the highlight, really. That's the thing that we are going in depth about. That's the thing, because by this stage, they should have a bit of an understanding about what we're talking about. So if you're ever unsure, that's where you need to go. Go to that Part 3 assessment, and that will tell you which competency or if it is a competency. And as we go through the course, you will find that in each module, there is either 1, 2, or sometimes even 3 competencies in those learning outcomes. And then on module 2, as if magic, we deal with the last competency on the standards check sheet. So we go through them one by one, in depth. All right. So our PDIs and you will have a really, really clear understanding of what these competencies are and how they can achieve them. All right. Any other questions on that? Everyone happy? Cool. Right. So let's have a look at this. So at the beginning of the session, before you get in the car, or once you get in the car, before the car moves and before you start doing anything, we need to have a conversation with them. Okay, it says spend some time discussing the progress the trainee has made over the past 2 weeks. So this is the work they've been doing away from you. We're just checking that they have good time management, that things are working out as they expect them to work out. If they're struggling with anything, it says use their action plans and course book as reference. Discuss how much time they spent on private practice, developing commentary driving and their driving skills. Be practical in your feedback and tell them if they have not done enough, but also offer practical solutions to help them manage their time to practice and learn. Equally, acknowledge the time they have set aside for practice and study and give them positive reinforcement for this. The feeling during this sort of recapping must always be positive and encouraging. Be prepared to constantly modify your expectations of how they should progress and ensure that they are left feeling motivated. In the early stages of this course, some people don't quite get the concept. You know, you're always going to have those trainees who pay their money and expect you to train them. And if they just turn up, they will pass their Part 3. We know it doesn't work like that. And particularly this course doesn't work like that. They have to put the effort in. They have to do the work. Because if they turn up for the session, they're unprepared or ill-prepared, then the sessions don't work. And we don't have time to spoon feed that information into them. So in these early stages, it's really important that we check. Make sure that their time management is good, that they're getting out there and practicing. Because if they don't practice, they're not going to get any better. All right. It goes on to say, discuss what taking responsibility for their learning means and what part they feel self-assessment plays in this. Discuss what they feel are the benefits of this student-centered approach and how it differs from other more traditional forms of teaching. Compare how they are learning to how their students will be learning. Explain that during the session today, you will be focusing on coaching skills and that these are the tools that will develop self-assessment and self-responsibility in themselves as well as their pupils. And then set a SMART goal for the session. So that's for the whole session. Okay. Right, so we're going to start getting you doing a little bit of work nice and early this morning, because it says in there, about student-centered learning and traditional learning styles. Yeah, traditional teaching, traditional lessons. So I would like you to chat, please, have a quick conversation amongst yourselves. So I want you to connect this conversation to student-centered learning and how the student does benefit from taking responsibility for their learning and self-reflection. So why has driver training moved away from traditional styles to client-centered learning? What is the importance of our PDIs and our learner drivers taking responsibility for their learning? Yeah. What does it mean? What benefit is it of them, for them, to take responsibility for their own learning and to self-evaluate? Okay, so we're going to give you 7 minutes, I think, just to be different.
7's a good number. It's
7's a
lucky.
good number. We like 7.
Yeah, it's a lucky number.
Yeah, so we're going to give you 7 minutes. Please choose a spokesperson. Try not to get distracted. All right, and then when you come back, we'll put it all together. All right. We will see you in 7. Thank you,
See
sir.
you in 7.
Morning.
Morning.
Formalities out of the way first. Who's going to be spokesperson?
I nominate Lisa.
Oh,
I'm only joking. I don't mind. I don't mind.
no, I don't mind. I'm easy. You like okay? I'll say that you give me the answers. That's fine.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So she was asking why client-centered learning is good for the PDI, basically, isn't it? Is that what
Yeah.
she basically?
Yeah, and students. I think for any student.
I think it's partly to do with that's what's expected of them when they're instructing their students. So they kind of need to follow the same sort of model, I guess. So they'll take that example of self-reflection and they'll ask their students to also kind of do the same thing when they're going through certain aspects of learning to drive. But I think when somebody's encouraged to reflect and to take responsibility, then they probably have a bit more of an awareness of what they need to do to improve. And then there's probably a bigger chance that they're likely to be more self-sufficient, I think, moving forward. Because I mean, you can't teach somebody to deal with every single situation. They've got to be a little bit more self-reliant, I think. So I think in the long run, it gives them more independence, I guess. What do you guys think?
It's a better understanding, doesn't it?
Yeah, I've got a saying on the back of my business cards, and it says, "Tell me and I forget, teach me and I may remember, involve me and I will learn." So I thought that was quite perfect, actually, for this.
Yeah. Is that Confucius or is that Aristotle? I can't remember who said that.
See, now you're asking. It's Lisa Osborne. That's what it is. It is now, anyway.
That's it. Yes, it's for me. It's they have an understanding of what they need to do to improve themselves, and be able to adjust to whatever's in front of them as a learner. So as a PDI, it's being that having the understanding of being able to, and as a trainer, I should say, for a PDI, it's having that understanding of how to adjust to the PDI and their needs and their learning style. So if you've got an understanding of it, they will then have an understanding of it, which they can pass on to their learners.
Yeah, I
And
think
then
we've moved away from it being the instructor's way or the highway kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, one size fits all, where they've realised it doesn't. And I think it pushes us as ADIs to better ourselves, to be able to tailor a lesson specifically for each student and their needs, rather than, you know, I think it was Graham that said it's like pouring the knowledge into them at one point, whereas now it's
taking knowledge out of them, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it benefits them in the long run. I think it sticks with them more.
Yeah, definitely. I think they learn quicker as well.
Yeah, I think it's a student that came to me from another instructor at one point, and they said, I know I need to check my mirrors, but I've never been told why. And it's as soon as you know the why behind it, it makes it easier. Like, okay, yeah, I get that now.
Yeah. Something I've always done is, so it's like I try and shy away from like check your mirrors, because what are they checking the mirrors for?
Yeah.
Just look in the mirrors. What am I looking for?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not looking for themselves. They're looking for what's there, what's in them. Yeah,
absolutely.
What are your thoughts, Sue?
I was using an app like you remember when we was learning to drive, how different it was?
Yeah.
And it was always tell. And my instructor he had pictures of all the corners and every road that I'd be going to. So when I passed my test, I couldn't drive.
Yeah.
I could not drive. And I say that to all of mine. I wished I was taught to drive now, how we teach now, how I was back then.
I think that a lot of the reason there's so many people driving badly on the roads today is that precise reason.
Yeah, they're taught to pass a test.
Yeah.
Don't think for themselves.
Unfortunately, they still are, aren't they, by many people?
I guess. Yeah, some I guess so. Yeah.
I think it's changing slowly. It's improving slowly, but it's not there yet. There's too many old school instructors out there.
Yeah, I was just going to say there's some new generations coming through, and as we're trained in this, or you can see the ADIs that are quite passionate about their continuous personal development, they're the ones that are bringing it up and through now.
Yeah,
it's the old school instructors, absolutely.
But you still a big misunderstanding with coaching still, though.
Yeah, you see it on forums, don't you? I think I saw it the other day. Somebody was saying that they're really struggling with like asking questions and things, and somebody came up there, well, don't worry about it, just teach how you want to teach and worry about it when your SC comes. I thought, that's not quite what you're supposed to be saying to a new instructor, is it?
It's interesting.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I stayed out of that one. I thought I'm not getting involved.
Okay, so
I remember go on, Zay.
As I said, to summarize then, just to make sure, because we've got like 35 seconds, it kind of it brings the PDI more involved in their kind of learning process. It gives them almost a format to follow when they do eventually become instructors.
Yeah.
And it's getting them to think for themselves.
Yeah, and I think you sound perfect to be the spokesperson with that.
I knew you were going to say that.
As soon as you started doing that, I was like, boom. That's you. I'll see you in 7.
All right, see you in a minute.
competition definitely won by Lisa there. Penny not far behind. Okay, so let's have a look at these groups. Okay, let's start with the one where we have 4 of you in the group, and that's Lisa, Penny, Sue, and Z. Who's your spokesperson?
I'll be the spokesperson. I was nominated
Thank you, Steve.
in the last few seconds.
It's normally the way they normally go, oh, we haven't, oh, right, you, and then they leave, don't they?
Well, I was conscious we had 30 seconds left. I thought, let's quickly summarize. And Lisa was like, well, that's you, so you can crack on. I deserve it, I think, to be fair. What we discussed was because client-centered learning is something which we also have to deliver to the learners as well. It kind of gives them a format almost to follow, so that when they do eventually become instructors, that they'll already have gone through the process of learning in a particular way. So then they can then implement that within their lessons. But beyond that, it involves them more in their own learning, so they're becoming more independent, so that they can almost problem solve. Because I mean, we can help them to deal with certain situations and go through certain topics, but you know, there's certain problems out there which they're going to have to solve by themselves, and if we're spoon feeding them every solution, then they're never going to be in the process of ever having to think for themselves. That was kind of like our.
Nice.
But also it's giving them what they need rather than giving them everything, even if they don't need it, sort of thing. So we're almost encouraging them to work with what they've already got, sort of thing.
Yeah,
that's kind of where we came from on that
excellent.
one.
Okay, thank you.
Nice. Room 3, we had Jeanette, Kenny, and Scott.
Okay, so we talked about traditional teaching first and how it was kind of chalk and talk, and you were actually telling the pupil what to do all the time. And I kind of reflected back in my own learning experience, you know, when the instructor stuck his head out the window and told me to turn left, turn right, turn left, turn right when I was doing a reverse round the corner, and I haven't a clue how I actually did it. And I was terrified going to test because I really didn't know what I was doing. You know, but if we use kind of experiment, reflect and develop, then we can allow them to experiment. And we kind of brought in competency 3 for a very couple of seconds about the practice area being important, because if you've got a really good practice area, then you can allow the pupil to make mistakes. You know, get a street with a drop curb and allow them, you know, to maybe come too close to the curb and, you know, discuss and evaluate why that happened, why it might happen to their pupils, you know, and explain to them that that's what they should be doing, allowing the pupils to experiment, reflect on what went well, what didn't go so well, how you can help them with, you know, the stage of their development.
Okay, lovely, thank you.
Excellent.
I think we had quite a comprehensive lesson there about instructor training, I think.
Absolutely. Like it. Room 2, we've got Jamie, Leon, and Susie. Is that Leon?
Yes. Okay, so the reason I suppose client-centered learning is a better way, it gives the student more responsibility for their own learning, so that the trainee, for example, gives them more responsibility for their own learning. And that results in a more absorbed learning. So it also keeps them more focused. If they're kind of fishing for the answers or they're searching for them for themselves, it is absorbed much better. But it also helps build a good level of rapport between the trainer and the trainee, because then, again, just speaking about rapport, about this whole instructor-learner hierarchy, it helps build sort of this equal level of relationship and rapport between the two.
Nice, yeah.
Nice.
And also it helps us understand the students' level. It also helps us understand the trainees or the students' sort of their thought processes of how they actually work, how they think things through, how they problem solve. So it gives us a better understanding of how their minds work. So to better understand their mind will then really help us strategize our teaching methods.
Excellent. Like it. And finally, group 1 was Brian, Nick and Susan.
We didn't nominate somebody, so who was it?
That'll be you then, Susan.
That'll be you then. Fastest finger first and all that.
Yeah, okay. Oh, pretty similar really. It's just if you learn something through thinking about how you like reflecting on what you did, you remember it better, and you can always think how maybe you could have done something better or different next time, rather than just being told somebody else's opinion. There are trainees probably and pupils who are less comfortable speaking about what they feel initially, so it might take a bit longer with some people than others, and you might have to do a bit more feedback to start with. But when time, and it will also mean that they'll pass that on when they're training pupils. If they're used to thinking about how things went, they can get their pupils to behave in the same way right from day one.
Excellent.
I like that.
And does it also help you to understand what they've learned rather than understanding what you've taught?
Yeah.
Because there's a big difference between what you teach somebody or what you believe you've taught somebody and what they've actually learned, isn't there?
Yeah. Yeah,
and
it can get tight
traditionally,
sometimes.
traditionally we knew exactly what we'd taught people, and we used to bang our heads on the side of the car going, well, why haven't they learnt it? I've taught them this 20 times. Yeah, whereas this way perhaps we more understand what they've learned. Yes,
definitely.
Sorry, I keep getting distracted by Kenny in his snogging session with his dog.
They're having a real love-in this morning.
They are. No, they are.
Absolute slobbers here.
Cool. All right. Some fabulous discussions were going on there. And I think, you know, you've all pretty much got the hang of it, really. You know, I think self-evaluation is hugely important here, because if they don't self-evaluate, how do they know what they need to learn? And this is about taking responsibility for their learning. They should really come to you in the in-car session knowing exactly what they need. Yeah, which will help you to keep on their agenda rather than your own agenda. You know, when I trained to become a driving instructor in particular, it was always preset tests, you know. So when I went out in the car, and I know Sarah was the same, and I'm sure a lot of you were the same, you went to go and teach a roundabout and you said, how do I teach this then? Nobody's ever told me how to teach this.
Yeah, it's very passive learning as well, wasn't it,
Very
Dave?
passive learning.
You just sat there, you had no idea what you were supposed to prepare before a session. You sat there and were told to do something, then you did it to the best of your ability, and then you were told why it was crap. That there was no real learning going on. All there was demoralization, and at the end of each session, feeling that you couldn't do the job. Jeanette.
Yeah, because when you actually went to the test centre to sit your part 3, you hadn't a clue what you were actually doing.
No.
So it wasn't until you actually signed the sheet to say that you were insured and everything that you were actually given the subject.
Yeah.
You know, so you had to learn 20 subjects and just hope that they picked the one that you liked.
Exactly.
It was absolutely horrific.
And hope that the role play that the examiner played matched what your trainer had role played when they were doing these pretend exams.
Yeah,
you know, you had no skills as a driving instructor in those days. You weren't taught how to be a driving instructor.
No.
You were taught about core competencies, and that was basically
that was it.
And core competencies around different subjects. There was no skills training. I will just say briefly, I mean, when I was training to be a driving instructor, my son was doing GCSEs at the time, so we'd quite often be sat at the table together doing homework. And he said to me one day, he said, well, what are you actually doing? I said, well, I'm learning about core competencies. And he said, well, what's that? I said, well, that's the basics of how to be a driving instructor. I said, what you need to do is you need to find out what the fault is. You need to analyse what the fault is, and then you need to tell them how to do it right. And he
Mhm.
said, I thought you were going to be a driving instructor. I said, I am going to be a driving instructor. He said, you're not. He said, you're just going to be a driving criticizer. And at the time I laughed, but it's only looking back now that I realize how enlightened he was and how
Absolutely.
stupid I was, because that's exactly what it was. You were taught to be a driving criticizer in those days.
Mhm.
You weren't taught how to teach.
Yep.
But you guys aren't going to be like that.
No,
You,
and
you
nor are your
guys are
PDIs. which is-
definitely not going to train your PDIs that way.
Absolutely.
Good. Okay. Any questions on that? Everyone happy? Good. All right. Right. So we are now moving into these 5 learning outcomes. And the first one is having another look at their driving. So last time we did like a development session on general driving. And this time we're going to focus on routines. Okay, so all we're going to need is a short repeatable route, maybe a figure of 8 of junctions. And we are going to focus on all of the routines, POM, MSPSL, LADA, so. All right, so you can have a quick read through that. So this is all we're doing. We're just going to do junctions, get them to drive the junctions, focus on their routines, and maybe talk themselves through those routines. Okay, so this is just to get a system into their head. All right, so have a quick read through there for me. So what I want you to notice about this, guys, is neither a driving assessment nor driving development. It's like our pupils, you know, if you ask them to focus, and this is why we do risk management, if we ask them to focus on a particular thing, sometimes other things which they would normally do quite well might deteriorate. So when we are asking these guys to focus on routines, it might mean that their general driving actually deteriorates slightly. And that's okay, because we're risk managing. But we're certainly not going to start picking up faults by saying, well, you didn't check your mirrors there, you're in the wrong gear here, you're signaling the wrong way or whatever, because that's not important. The learning outcome is for them to familiarize themselves with these driving routines. Okay, so that's what we've got to keep in our heads. This isn't, you know, assessment, and it's not development. It's just about routines. So they're focusing on the routine they're carrying out and when they're carrying it out, and also maybe noticing when it might go slightly out of order because it needs to go out of order. It's just noticing what they're doing, becoming more aware of where these routines fit in. Okay, because if they've got a systematic way of driving, how is that going to help their overall drive? So we're always looking at the bigger picture. Yeah, so we're not worried about, you know, the little mistakes they're making. We keep the car safe So if they're going too fast, we slow them down. If they're signaling the wrong way, we say, no, you need to signal the other way. But we're not going to do those core comps on them at this stage. This is just about, encouraging them to be a little bit more self-aware about what they do and when they implement these things. All right. Cool. When they've done that, don't forget the first thing you're going to do. So they've done the experiential, if you like, they've done the practice. So now they're going to reflect on that learning outcome by going back to their action plans and reflecting on that exercise. Okay. So they might say, I need to learn these routines better. Yeah, I'm getting it, but not quite every time. Maybe I need to read, so the resources might be, I may need to read this up and driving central skills, or I need to get out the car and practice it a little bit more. So it's their review of their reflection of that exercise. All right. And then you can have a look at their commentary drive. So again, they've done a little bit of practice in session 1. They should have been practicing it between sessions. So you'd hope for a little bit better this time. We've also mentioned the format that we're looking for the commentary: alert, inform, instruct, and how that comes into guided instruction. Yeah, and they've just done an exercise on basic instruction, so that should now make a little bit more sense. So we're going to have a look at their commentary drive. So it says, develop the commentary driving skills, the observational commentary and structure of alert, inform, instruct. Discuss the hazard perception element of the Part 1 exam and explain how commentary driving can help prepare for HPT. They will have a video on the HPT in their ticket online. You don't have to spend too much time on this commentary. Okay, it's just having a look at it, seeing if they are improving and if they make sense of it. Right? It's up to them to take responsibility for their learning. If they're not very good at it, go and practice it. Go and get better at it. All right. And again, once I've done that, give them time to go back and reflect on what they need to do next in order to develop. All right, so now we are moving into our competency for this session. And this competency is a second competency, as we found out, under lesson planning. How to agree a lesson structure that is appropriate for the pupil's experience and ability. In my opinion, and it is only my opinion, I think the broad heading of lesson planning is probably the be all and end all of a successful Part 3 or standards check. If you don't get this right, if you don't spend enough time on it, if you get the wheels moving without a specific plan in your head where your pupil, your PDI, or you know exactly what you're looking for and what this learner is trying to achieve, then how do you know what the risk is to manage? How do you know whether this learning is taking place? How do you know if they're getting closer to actually achieving the goal? So this lesson planning to me is probably the be all and end all. If you get this right, everything else tends to fall into place. If you get it wrong, and most PDIs, I have to say, do get it wrong, then that has knock-on effects with everything else, with risk management, with teaching and learning strategies, because they all overlap. Get this right, then most things will become right, because you've got a clear line in your head, exactly what's going on, and so is your PDI or learner. All right, so last time we looked at setting the goal. and that was really about the what. What do you want to learn? What do you want to achieve? Yeah, and this is the how. How do you want to achieve this? All right, so this is about the lesson structure. So this is, okay, we now know what it is you're trying to achieve. How do you want to go about that? What needs to happen in this lesson in order to help you achieve your goal? All right, so this is what this competency is all about. The how. How are we going to do this? Okay, so you know, if we look at the whole content of lesson planning, we can recap by looking at their reflection from the previous lesson. Yeah, because we all use reflective logs, don't we? Yeah. And of course, with a PDI, it's an action plan. And that is really your recap, isn't it? Okay. Then you go into setting the goal, which is the what. Then you go into how would you like to learn this? So that becomes your structure, if you like. What's this going to look like? You then agree a route. You agree the help. And then you talk about sharing responsibility. All of that has to be done before the car moves. If you don't do that before the car moves, how do you know what you're doing? How do you know what you're doing? All right. So this bit here really is about how do you want to learn this? How do you want to go about doing this? We know what you're trying to achieve. How are we going to achieve it? All right. So I'm going to read to you from the instructor's handbook, driving instructor's handbook, about what it says in there. And it says, was the agreed lesson structure appropriate for the pupil's experience and ability? The lesson structure should allow the pupil to progress at a manageable rate, stretching them, but without overwhelming them. Make sure the pupil understands what is planned and that they agree with that plan. Reflect back the information given by the pupil and the learning goals they want to tackle. Build in opportunities to check the statements made by the pupil before moving to more challenging situations. Check the pupil's understanding of the issues involved. Avoid delivering a pre-planned standard lesson that doesn't take into account the pupil's expressed needs or concerns. Make sure to build in a suitable balance of practice and theory. So we can see that this isn't just the conversation the initial conversation of how this is going to be structured. This is monitoring all the way through. Are they overwhelmed? Is it too easy? Is this actually helping them achieve their goal? It's checking. And if the plan isn't working, then we might need to consider changing that plan. So we have an initial plan. And this is making that initial plan. All right. Okay, so all it says in the guidance notes is make sure the trainee recognises that this is the second competence under lesson planning and is based on the DVSA National Driver Training Standard. Discuss how to agree a lesson structure. Discuss learning styles, visual, audio, kinesthetic. Discuss how many ways they can think of to structure a lesson. So we're asking them to think about people's learning styles and how people might learn and how they might adapt the lesson and how they deliver the information, connecting with that person's preferred learning style. So it's not always going to be about bagging out your presenter and showing somebody a diagram. It might be let them have a go. It might be doing a demonstration with or without commentary. It might be describing to somebody or talking them through something or getting them to talk themselves through something. So it really depends on what their learning style is. And don't forget, you know, these learning styles aren't a science. They're not fixed in stone. We change, don't we? We change. You know, if we're doing something for the first time, we might have a preferred learning style. But if we're doing something that we've experienced a little bit, you know, or we know a little bit about it, we might learn it in a different way. So this is about checking every time. How do you want to learn this? I could show you a diagram. I could give you a demonstration. I could just talk you through it. Or you could have a go on your own. Which would you prefer? And then you deliver that information in that way. All right? Everyone okay and happy with that? Yeah, good. So this is really just a conversation. You might do, you know, a bit of a demonstration about it. You might have a chat about the different ways that you could deliver the lesson. Yeah, deliver that information. But don't forget, you know, this is about monitoring. You set a plan and then you check it and you check it and you check it and you check it. Because if it's not happening, if the plan isn't working, then we might need to change the plan. All right. Good. Back to those action plans. Yes, Jeanette.
Sorry, Di. When people talk about adapting the lesson, for example, if you've set a goal, say your goal is roundabouts, right?
Yep.
So I'm quite happy that if the pupil maybe can't roll on to roundabout, you would maybe want to go back and go to junctions and try and get them to roll out of junctions. And if they can't roll out of a junction, you can go back to a straight road and get them to roll through past a lamppost or whatever, and then build it back up. So you're still staying within the kind of junctions goal, as it were.
Yeah.
But if somebody's maybe not checking their mirrors, would you adapt the plan totally and instead of doing junctions, jump onto mirrors?
Okay.
Or would you pin the mirrors and maybe say, right, we have got a problem with mirrors. That's not our goal for today. So what we'll do is we'll pin that and we'll come back to it next week.
Okay, right. There's a couple of things I want to talk to you about there, Jeanette, really. We are going to talk about this a little bit more when we're talking about the fourth competence under lesson planning, which is
right, adapt it. Yeah.
All right. However, this is the initial plan. All right. So the second competence is an initial plan. Now, the second thing I want to ask you is, you said the goal was roundabouts.
Which is, no, the goal would be approaching roundabouts.
Approaching or emerging?
Emerging onto roundabout, yeah.
So the goal is finding a safe gap, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing we have to.
Yeah, because roundabouts is a subject, not a goal.
Exactly. It's huge, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so we need to drill that right down into a specific. And that specific is to be more confident about choosing a gap, or, you know, to get out into a gap. Great. And then you said, so therefore, they're focusing then, aren't they, on choosing the gap?
Mm-hmm.
Whose responsibility is the approach?
Well, if I had a pupil with me, we would have discussed that and said, right, what do you want me to be responsible for?
Okay.
So,
but even if they said, I think I'm okay with the approach, it's just this getting out into the roundabout, yeah?
Yeah.
But
so
even if they say that to you, whose overall responsibility is it?
Me or
Right.
the PDI?
Right, good. So if your pupil is missing their mirrors on approach, who is responsible for it?
Well, I would be doing it anyway.
Exactly, but you need to tell them, yeah? So you're just saying,
Uh-huh.
you're not checking your mirrors here, but don't worry, I'm doing it for you. Because that's
Yeah.
what you said you do, yeah?
Yeah.
So tell me, why would you change the goal when you're only doing your job and they're only doing theirs?
Yeah, that's what I mean. You know, because PDIs have said to me, you know, they've heard in the test centre, you know, that, you know, if you go through your core competencies or whatever and they're not checking the mirrors, then you immediately have to change the goal to mirrors. And I'm saying, no, you don't, because you've agreed the goal at the start.
Exactly.
Yes, if they've got a problem, I would pin it and say, we'll come back to it, so that you have made the examiner aware that you have seen that problem.
And somebody's doing it.
And somebody's doing it, but you have to stay focused on the goal.
I mean, it would be different, wouldn't it, if you saw it, your pupil wasn't doing it, you weren't doing it, and nobody mentioned it.
Yeah.
So that would be a little bit of an issue.
But that's your shared responsibility,
exactly,
isn't it?
Exactly. And even if your pupil, you know that both you and your pupil know they have an issue with mirrors, yeah, you can say to them, okay, well, so while you're focusing on this emerging, I'll look after your mirrors.
I'll do the mirrors, right?
Until we actually look at that later on, because we both know you've got a problem with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
keep you safe, I'll do your mirrors for you.
Perfect. Yeah, so you wouldn't just change the goal and the structure of the lesson.
Now, keeping that in mind, if it was something that was safety critical that happened,
yes, that's different.
Now, I'm still going to be about this, because if it's something safety critical, then why the hell didn't you risk manage it in the first place to prevent it from happening? Yeah, because it shouldn't be happening if you're doing the job properly. Yeah. And you will get marked down for risk management if something else happens. Yes.
Yes.
In which case you might.
Yes.
Change the goal. Now.
Yes.
What a waste of time. You've spent all this time setting up this beautiful lesson plan, and because you didn't have your finger on the pulse and you let something develop into something horrible, and didn't do what you told your people you were going to do, which was keep them safe.
Right. Okay.
You've now got to change the lesson plan.
Yeah.
So it's really your fault. You have an awful lot of driving instructors in this country that speed read. Yeah. And what they read is change the goal. What competency says change the goal?
I know it says adapt the lesson, so you're not changing the goal.
So in this competency we're doing today, we're making a plan.
Right. Okay.
Adapting the lesson plan.
Right. Okay.
Yes. Not goal.
Yep.
So the plan isn't working, we're going to adapt the plan, which basically means if your pupil is overwhelmed, you make it easier.
Yeah.
If it's
so
too easy,
we can
you make
change the
it more challenging.
structure.
That's all it means.
Yeah. So the structure can change, so you could maybe give a demo.
Exactly. So if whatever you have chosen isn't working for your pupil or your PDI, you don't just keep banging your head against a brick wall. You say, it doesn't appear to be working. What might work better for you?
Yeah.
What's another way to achieve this goal? What's a simpler way to achieve this goal? Or are there any small elements that are missing that I could put in place now that will help them achieve this goal?
Yeah.
It's not the goal changing. You should never be changing the goal. You're adapting the lesson plan to achieve the goal.
Yeah.
That's where people fall down, is they're not adapting the lesson plan to achieve the goal when that lesson plan has proved to be unachievable.
Yeah.
Or the goal has been achieved and they keep going with it.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah,
if you've achieved something, you want to make it more challenging or
go on to something else. Or go on to something else. Have a second goal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Scott.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Good. Yeah, I just went from being 100% confident to knowing what I was doing to I got extremely confused by the conversation, and in the last 60 seconds, you've just clarified things for me. But I just wanted to
Okay.
get
Play it back
asked
to us,
questions,
Scott.
ensure that I knew where we're coming from. So sticking to the roundabout lesson, let's say, right? So if I was on a standards check and we had agreed that the student was struggling with emerging at the roundabout, and they were going to do it, but they're close to test standards, so they've also said, well, I can do mirror, signal, position, speed, gear, look, and approach. I'm happy to do all of that. But they keep struggling. So if they're not checking their mirrors, if they're forgetting to signal, the examiner's still expecting us to do core comps to pick that up.
Absolutely.
And go to, so I normally do a core comp, like tell them, then they prompt them on the next one, and then commend them, and then watch them the third time. But if they keep making mistakes, you said pull them over and say, well, let's make it easier. Why don't I take some ownership for mirror signal to allow you to keep working on this objective? And that's how it should go, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. Because quite often with a student, even when they're good, when they're trying to concentrate on one particular thing, other things can fall by place. It's exactly the same for us. Do we remember when we were part 2 driving and we all thought we could drive until we got in the car and realized that actually I didn't even know that I couldn't drive, because you're trying to concentrate on other things rather than just doing what you naturally do well. Yeah,
I scored myself a 10 out of 10 on my first 30-minute drive with my ADI, and he scored me a 2.
Bless
and then he demonstrated and showed me why I was a 2, and I went, okay, I'm a 2.
Unconscious, incompetent.
Yeah, I mean, what the level of student you're talking about now, Scott, who's near test standard, you might treat it slightly differently in a way of, I noticed you didn't check the mirror there. Can you try and remember it next time? Don't worry, I did check it for you, but try to bring it in next time.
Well, how can you remember to do it next time? And if they go, oh no, I'll definitely remember, great, I will be watching you. What do you want me to do if you don't check it? Oh, I'd like you to prompt me. Okay, great. Or I've got too much going on in my head because I'm thinking about emerging onto this roundabout. Can you help me?
I mean, if they've generally got a problem with mirrors, then they've got a problem with mirrors, and that is it's a separate goal.
Yeah.
And so therefore you manage it until you get a chance to deal with it. But you let them know that, you know, look, we know you've got a problem with mirrors, don't worry about it. I'll look after them. You focus on emerging. And then maybe after once we crack that, then we can come back and have another look at these mirrors.
And I guess at the end of a standards check, let's say, I know we're doing this, but for the PDI's benefit as well, is then when you're recapping, you talk about everything they've done well, but you would maybe bring that, okay, so you're struggling with mirrors, let's set that as a goal for future lessons, so the examiner wants to hear all that.
Got it. Yep.
Absolutely. Well, not just the examiner wants to hear it. You want to have that conversation with the student, even without an examiner in the back. You know, because this is about conducting a lesson the way you should be conducting your lessons.
Yeah.
This isn't about a lesson that is going to impress an examiner on the part 3 or on a standards check. This is how you should be constructing all of your lessons.
Yeah.
And once you are constructing them that way, and once you're in the routine and the habit of understanding that, and in terms of delivering, you know, between the goal and the risk and who's doing what and setting smart goals, and standards check becomes really, really, really easy because it's something you really are genuinely doing all the time. Okay, sorry, Dan.
No, that's okay. We're going to have to move on because we're sort of getting a bit sidetracked.
Sorry, everyone. Thanks.
No, a really good conversation. No, brilliant conversation. Because I think it clarified a few things for a lot of people. But we will be saying most of it again when we come on to the 4th competency under lesson planning, which is adapt the lesson plan. All right. So we'll be talking about that again. Good. Okay, so we've just done how to agree lesson structure. Give them time to reflect on that, on their action plans, and then we'll move into how to build rapport. Rapport. So this is one of our essential coaching skills, rapport. To me, it's probably one of the most important doing client-centered training, because without rapport, you don't get anywhere really. Right, so we are going to have a look at it. So they're going to watch the video in Ticket Online about building rapport. We want you to discuss with them the difference between client-centered rapport and instructor-led rapport. Okay, and also the techniques used. So we're going to pop you into a breakout room. Give my voice a little bit of a rest. I'm getting through peppermints like it's Christmas. Okay, so I would like you please to go into a breakout room and discuss what are the non-verbal communication techniques that you can use to build rapport, and what is the difference between client-centered rapport and instructor-led rapport. So what are the techniques of non-verbal communication that you can use? Okay. And what's the difference between student-centered, client-centered rapport and instructor-led rapport? And I think we're going to have another 7 minutes, please.
Okay. See you all in 7.
See you soon.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey. Okay, non-verbal.
So active listening, body language.
Yeah.
I think are the biggest two, aren't they?
Yeah.
Eye contact.
Yeah.
I think they're all written here, aren't they? Nodding, eye contact, matching body language.
Yeah.
Didn't even read that.
That was very good. I'm impressed. Yeah, I don't know what else. You know, finger gestures maybe. If you're not
Depends
very
on
happy.
which ones you use, yeah.
Yeah. So what was she saying? Something about instructor-led and client-centered rapport. I mean, it says here client.
Sorry, you go ahead, see.
It says client-centered rapport is based on the belief that learning comes from within, and therefore an equal relationship is needed. So I guess instructor-led rapport.
Yeah, so it's more of a hierarchical
Yeah.
relationship, isn't it? And an instructor-led. So the instructor's the god.
Yeah, and all the information is coming from the instructor.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah.
Students sort of the peasant, and whereas where in client-centered you're equal on equal terms, aren't you? Yeah. You don't know more than the client knows.
Yeah, it's like an exchange of knowledge.
Yeah. You know the information, but you're extracting the information rather than giving the information.
Yeah.
So it's a lot better rapport, you're a lot better in sync with the other person. So I'm trying to think of any other sort of non-verbal communication skills.
I'm having a look now. Just done a little Google search because I'm, other than what they've put here, I just wonder if there is anything else.
Intuition, I suppose. And just, yeah, so looking at
The main ones are eye contact.
Yeah.
You got smiling. Body positioning is one that's just there. So I guess it's like, you know, people
Yeah,
have
it's
the
the old
arms,
school crossing of the arms. Yeah.
nice, open and relaxed, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And mirroring their style.
Yeah.
I think it's as well like reading the student, like you can see if they get quite deflated and stuff.
That's
or
it,
if there's something on their mind, and so it's leading from that and thinking, right, okay, you know, what's a kind of probing them a little bit to say, well, you know, like I'm getting frustrated with that, why can't I get it? Or, you know, and then building on that.
Yeah, it's where that sort of intuition comes in, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sort of get that feeling
Yeah,
from them.
the instinct that, you know, they're getting pissed off.
Yeah. Don't want to do this anymore. I've had enough of it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. So who's going to be the spokesperson this time? Bagsy, not me.
You've done it, see, yeah.
Thanks for that, Lisa, by the way.
Yeah, they wondered why I was the first one back in the room.
That was terrible, that was. Terrible. I'll let you off though, since we're part of the crew.
Absolutely. Sorry, did you say you volunteered again?
Sorry, my speaker's gone a bit.
Is there something outside your window? You keep looking that way.
I'm looking for a way to get out of here.
It's just getting a way out, yeah.
Yeah, we've got a minute and something.
We're probably going to be last this time anyway, aren't we? Because we were first last time.
In an ideal world, yeah.
I don't mind doing it. I say I don't mind.
These are quite useful. I do prefer Graham as a presenter, though, to be honest.
Why is that?
Well, I think he's a bit more
laid back and.
Yeah, I don't know. I just prefer his style, I guess. He's just a bit more. Feels a bit more human. Not that they don't, but he's a bit more. Seems more approachable, I guess.
Yeah, I enjoyed doing the trainer course with Graham.
Yeah, me too.
It's building that rapport, as they say.
Yeah. He throws a bit of comedy in as well, which is always nice.
Yeah. Especially when he's going to Australia.
Oh, yeah.
Where were you, Lisa?
Yeah, very slow today, Lisa.
Yeah, I thought I'd ride this one out right to the last second.
Okay, so let's start with the twosome. You should have had Nick with you as well, but Nick's had a few internet issues. So it is just Brian and Susan together.
As Susan taught last time, I suppose I'll take it on.
Go on then, Brian.
Yeah. obviously discussing the differences between client-centered and instructor-led. By being client-centered and listening to their needs may well get them to open up, especially the shyer people that you're trying to teach. That also goes with the ADIs, sorry, with the PDIs as well. In the early stages, they don't want to answer questions, and they don't want to, in case they look foolish at maybe an answer that's coming out, which clearly we would never laugh at. But
So how are you building this rapport, Brian?
By body matching, so eye contact. If they like eye contact, if they don't, then match what it is that they do. Smiling, trying to project yourself as an approachable individual that's willing to listen to their problems. Nodding when they're busy talking, so that you are well done. So so they're showing you agreeance and not having to verbalize a response. Matching body language. Like I say, if they don't like eye contact, then you don't do eye contact, that type of thing. And active listening, really getting involved, listening to what they're saying, and project a little bit on that, or perhaps throw in an experience or an example of something that's happened like that to clarify a situation for them. It's sort of building an equal relationship rather than the hierarchical instructor-led crossed arms. You will do this, you will do that. That's not right. This is wrong, etc. It doesn't really put them in a good frame of mind. Makes it more dictatorial, and you less of an open individual, I suppose. So yeah, that's really what we chatted about.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Room 2, we've got Jamie, Leon, and Susie.
I'm the spokesperson this time. Yeah, so we put with regards to the client-centered rapport building, like active listening, same sort of thing. Once again, matching the body language to your pupil. Nod along, make sure that you're it's looking like you're paying attention. You might not be, but make it look like you are. Ask effective questions, being open-minded, being non-judgmental, and what we put for instructor-led, sorry, it was being you're not asking enough open questions, not allowing them to set their own goals. So you're saying, right, instead of what would you like to do today, instructor-led is, I think we should do this today, and not taking their
Is that instructor-led rapport, Susie?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool, thank you. Okay. Room 3, we got Jeanette, Kenny, and Scott.
And that'll be me, I guess.
Scott.
Right. So for building rapport, non-verbal, we had pretty much all the same as what's already been said. The eye contact, open body language. The other additional things was maybe like silence or the active listening, I think was said. But yeah, sometimes sitting silent, sitting back. If the lessons have been a bit stressful for them, you can see the stress building in them. Maybe when you pull up and stop, get them to put their seat back, take the seat belt off, you're turning and facing them, things like that. This might be, I've got it written down. I wrote this one down actually as a verbal nod. I know it's a communication thing, but sometimes without interrupting, waiting for a little bit of silence, or if you can see them kind of thinking about what to say next, just a little yeah, something like that, just to encourage the conversation to keep going. But I know that's a verbal nod, not a non-verbal one. In regards to client-centered, we were saying maybe it's more like solution-based. You're looking to draw information from the student or elicit information. Someone said, I think Graham Hooper come up with that. Treating them as an equal, being open, engaging with your students. And if the student is open and engaging and they're asking lots of questions, then you're probably having a good client-centered learning experience, rather than them turning off and you've lost all rapport with them. Yeah.
Could I just ask a question, Scott? Would that be okay? Is when they pull up and getting them to move their seat and getting them to sit in a position, is that instructor led or is that client led?
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. But
okay.
But the question is, how do you build rapport? So that's a way of building rapport, isn't it? So
well,
you
is that instructor led rapport? I mean, it's still building rapport, but is it instructor led rapport?
Well, I guess not telling them, but asking them. So when I put my seat back, I'm just like, I would turn and say, if you like, you can put your seat back and take your seatbelt off if you like, just to be in a more relaxed environment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So sometimes you can catch us out with our choice of words, but yeah, I guess if you challenge yourself and you think about it, then yeah, I tend more to ask rather than tell.
Well, exactly, and you know what we've been trained to do is solve these people's problems for them rather than helping them to solve their own.
Yeah.
Because we've got the answers. So if we tell them to sit back, be more relaxed, we tell them what to do. We're being instructor led rather than client centered.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, moving on to room 4, we got Lisa, Penny, Sue, and Z.
Not me this time.
Lovely.
Pretty much, as everybody else has said, I'd add into intuition, like looking at them and thinking about how they're reacting and what you feel their reactions are to things. With the client-led, I mean instructor-led, we said you've got the God and peasant. So the instructor's God. Sorry, Sarah. And
there's only one God, and it's me.
And the learner's the peasant, knows nothing. And so, whereas with the client-led, you're on an equal. You're more of a friendly relationship as opposed to a mother, daughter, father, son sort of relationship.
Can that relationship still be good though?
They can be good, yes.
Those hierarchical
with my,
relationships.
yeah, with my kids, but it's that I still know more when your child's little, you know more than the child. And I'm thinking little child here, you're stopping them from doing something unsafe. Whereas as they grow up, the relationship changes, and you're more into a client-centered relationship with an older child than you are a younger child. That's
okay.
Thank you.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Good. So basically then, you know, client-centered rapport is built on the belief that learning comes from within. Yeah, it is an equal relationship. It's where a trainer holds that pupil in unconditional positive regard. Unconditional positive regard. It is much more of an equal relationship, as we've said, rather than hierarchical. Yeah. So we're drawing from the pupil, and in order, you know, rapport is a funny thing. If you look at your family or your friends, you can probably recognize in them something about you, and that's why you're drawn to them. Yeah, you get that? Yeah, because you recognize something about them which is similar to you. And this is what we are doing artificially by building rapport, by using these communication techniques, matching, mirroring, repeating back, paraphrasing, smiling, nodding, eye contact. We are showing whoever we're talking to that we are like them, and it draws them to us. Can anybody give me any examples of how, because it takes quite a while to build rapport, doesn't it? For some more than others. Some are very, very good at it, and others take a little bit longer. And it takes a while to actually build rapport, but you can lose rapport like that. Can anybody give me examples of how in driver training we might inadvertently lose rapport?
record responding in an angry way, perhaps.
Yep.
Telling them.
Off.
Yes,
Sorry.
Just stick your hands up, otherwise everyone talks at once. Yes, Jeanette.
Telling them they're wrong. You know,
Yes.
you're wrong there. Do it my way.
Yep. Scott.
Cutting Jeanette off when she's speaking.
That'll do it.
It's a very good example. Yeah.
Stop talking while I'm interrupting.
Jamie, you had your hand up.
Yeah, things like titting or saying or stuff like that. That voice report. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And they could be really subconscious gestures.
Yeah. And they notice if they do something wrong and you look out the window, every time they do something wrong, you look out the window, they notice stuff like that. Right?
I do.
Okay, Susan.
Yeah, sometimes when they're telling you something, taking over the conversation and making it about you.
Yes.
Yes,
absolutely. Yeah. Anything else? You come up with anything else? What if you don't say what if you don't do what you say you're going to do? Yeah. So you've agreed something and then you change your mind. Inadvertently, you don't mean to. You know, something like, okay, have a go on your own. Let's see what you can do. And the car moves away and you go, meh, 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 meh. Meh, 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 meh. Breaks rapport. Yeah. Or you say you're going to manage the risk and you don't. And you allow something potentially dangerous to happen and then go, shouldn't have done that. Breaks rapport. Hitting the dual controls can break rapport. Yeah. Of course it's necessary. We know it's necessary sometimes. Sometimes it's not. And we just sort of hover around the foot brake and inadvertently hit the foot brake. Yeah. It will break rapport. And if it happens, then we have to quickly rebuild rapport. Make an effort to rebuild rapport. Because otherwise learning will stop taking place. Okay, so there's lots of things, you know, to say sometimes takes a while to actually build that rapport. It takes a moment to lose it. We have to be very guarded with our actions and our words. Because we're driving instructors, we know how to fix it, don't we? We're the experts. Good. Okay, so after it is really just a conversation. So after that conversation, let them go back to their action plans. Anything they might want to reflect about that. And then we are moving into the last learning outcome for this session. And it's probably the longest one. It's probably the one that you're going to spend the most time on in the session. I'm not saying it's long because we're going to talk about it. I'm just saying that in the car, it's probably the bit that's going to take most of your time. So just be aware of that. Yeah. So out of your 3.5 hours, this is probably going to take majority, not majority, but quite a chunk of that time. Okay, so this is how to give basic instruction using pedestrian crossings as a platform. All the way through the course book, we are using subjects as platforms. But if you don't have any pedestrian crossings in your area, adapt it to something else that you do have. It's only a subject. It's not the learning outcome. The learning outcome is how to give basic instruction. Yeah. So yes, we go through each of the subjects as we go through. We try to, but you know, if you live in a rural place where there are no dual carriageways, for me, I have to travel 20 miles to get to a dual carriageway. So when it comes to doing dual carriageways, maybe it's a discussion. Yeah. Or maybe we use something else completely, because it's the subject that we're trying to teach. It's the skill that we're trying to teach, not the subject. Yes. Good. Okay. All right. So they've done the exercise in the course book. We can check their knowledge and understanding of pedestrian crossings, but we do not want to listen to a briefing at this stage. We don't want to spend our time listening to briefings. We don't. They can drive pedestrian crossings. They've learned about pedestrian crossings. This is not the time to listen to a briefing. We can check their knowledge and understanding, but that's all we need to know at this stage. So we are developing their instructional skills. That's what we're doing. We're developing their instructional skills, not their knowledge about pedestrian crossings. It says role play a learner who has had a few lessons and needs a lot of help with pedestrian crossings. Start with just observation and directions and develop their ability to give basic talk-throughs. So you just want a short repeatable route with maybe 3 or 4 pedestrian crossings on it. The first time you go around, they might just give you directions and watch what you're doing as you approach the pedestrian crossing. The second time you go around, they might point out they might give you directions, watch what you're doing and point out the pedestrian crossings. The next time they go around, yeah, so you see how you're developing it. So you're starting really easy and just adding things on as you go. So it says, link this to the last 2 parts where you looked at how to agree a lesson structure and how to build rapport. Explain that when they come to set up the exercise, you will be a learner who likes to get on with things and have a go, but who also needs a lot of help. Make sure that the trainee focuses on agreeing a goal with you and the structure of the lesson. They now know how to do that. So we're starting to build that lesson. So we want them to agree a goal with us and discuss the structure of how we want it done, what we want it to look like. Make sure the trainee focuses on agreeing a goal with you and the structure of the lesson. Also help them to develop rapport and divide up the responsibility for risk. On the move, prompt them in role to give you the help you need. Do not put in any deliberate faults. The focus is on the level of instruction around pedestrian crossings. They have completed exercise 3 in the ticket course book and should be able to draw on the information they researched and the questions they wrote. Take the opportunity to check their knowledge and understanding of pedestrian crossings, but do not listen to a briefing. So this is why it's so important to keep that learning outcome firmly in your mind. You are training them to deliver instruction. It's not about fault finding. It's not about core competencies. It's not about the subject of pedestrian crossings. We need to keep really focused, and it is our job to help our PDIs achieve their goal, not to make it too difficult. We're not there to make them look stupid. If they're struggling, break it down, make it easier. As their confidence builds, we build. Okay, this is about support. This is about keeping rapport. This is about helping them to achieve. Okay, please don't be like your trainer. Please don't take this opportunity to make people look stupid. All right. If necessary, for the first couple of times round, stay out of roll. Help them to give directions. Yeah. Help them to know where the pedestrian crossings are. And only when they're ready, go into roll. Every piece of role play must have a learning outcome. Otherwise, there's no point going into roll. Does that make sense? It's like every piece of driving should have a learning outcome in Learnerland. Every time your learner does a piece of driving, there should be a learning outcome. Every time you go into role as a trainer, there should be a learning outcome. Yeah. All right, any questions on that exercise? Silence, we like silence.
We do like silence.
Anybody got any questions about anything that we've done today? No, good. I like it. I like it. Good.
Almost a cup of tea time.
Yeah.
Yay.
Look at that, bang on 12 o'clock. That's not bad, is it?
Pretty good.
Right. Very, very quickly. All right. Give them a chance to actually reflect on that exercise. Check through their action plans so they know what they intend to do. All right, now they're going to go away and develop. Set out when the next session will be. Tick off their progress records at the beginning of their course book. Go home and do your feedback form, please. Without the feedback form, they don't get the online material for in-class session 3. All right. Brilliant. Thank you for your attention. It's been good. It's been really good. I'm loving the questions. Okay. Anybody coming this afternoon?
I can't. I'm sorry.
Hey, okay. Okay, cool. So we will see you at 1 o'clock. Same link. All right, just keep it simple. Only so we can find out where we're going. Nobody else.
When's module 3, Di?
Module 3 next week. Module 3.
That's on Valentine's Day. So anyone
how
who
nice
wants to
is
bring
that?
me flowers, that'll be lovely. I
What the
accept
wine will do,
chocolates, champagne, any of those things. We're happy to accept any of these gifts on Valentine's Day, aren't we, Di?
At any time, it doesn't have to be Valentine's Day.
That's also true. Yeah, that's also true.
Sarah?
Yes.
I will bring you sunshine.
Fantastic. From Tenerife, won't
From
you? Yeah.
Nice.
I'll wear my t-shirt especially, Jeanette, so that I can bask in it. If I'm freezing, it's going to be you to blame.
Right, I'm going to go and get some lunch. I'll see those who come in this afternoon at 1 o'clock. The rest of you, I'll see you next week. All right.
Brilliant.
Bye, guys.
See you later, guys. Bye.
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 Sarah, before you disappear,
Oh, I nearly disappeared. Go on.
again this afternoon, I'll be here in spirit
That's
only.
fine.
So I'm just gonna have it on record. Just I think
That's
my
absolutely
screen will be
fine.
blanked anyway. Just a quick question on the last bit that we looked at. Just something that I just want to clarify. When we're talking about instruction, we're talking about levels of support, aren't we? Is that what it's?
We're
what you're
talking about giving basic instruction. So talk through really guided instruction.
Got you. Okay, that's fine. That's cool.
Cool.
Cheers. Thank you.
See you later, Z.
Yeah, see you later, guys. Bye bye.
If I could just ask a question of you, Sarah.
Of course you can, Brian.
Where could I find a list of subjects that's permissible on the part 3?
A list of
The marking sheet.
Yeah, on the marking sheet that I'm using, it does say that you can do a maneuver.
As long as it's a recap, Brian.
Yeah. Not
Okay.
a maneuver for the first time.
Okay, but that's the only restriction. Any other lessons is absolutely fine.
Yeah, they want the wheels moving. They want it to be an instructional session of
Yeah, in a minute,
the
then.
car moving along, rather than a lot of time sat by the side of the road doing a lot of talking. You know, because
Understood.
they've got to know that learning can take place in a safety critical environment and that
Yeah.
the PDI can handle that.
Okay. And just when you're teaching control stop through the lesson plan.
That's a manoeuvre. It's a
No,
manoeuvre.
no, the different subjects, Di, different subjects. When teaching in-car session 11 is to teach control stop. It's down as two particular types of stopping. So an emergency stop and then normal stop and park at the side of the road.
Yeah.
That's not how it's.
Well,
that's not how it's
emergency
described.
stop is an unplanned stop.
Yeah.
A controlled stop is a planned stop.
I understand that, but on the marking guide for people's driving tests, a control stop is just purely an emergency stop. Got nothing to
Yeah,
do with
that's
it.
what they use.
Changing the name of it, Brian.
That's all it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if he was to recap on a control stop, then he would have to recap on both parts.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
No worries.
Cheers.
Nick, did you want us?
Yeah, just one little question. I cut out for a little while, and I just wondered if I missed any sort of golden nugget. Scott was about to say about approaching a roundabout with lesson planning, and it was about how you would assess if your learner had a problem, what you would do on the way to the roundabout, because we just said it was a big subject and it needed to be broken down, and we was talking about emerging, and he was saying, oh, okay, if I was on the approach to a roundabout and I cut out, I wondered if there was anything, if you remember, if there was anything.
No, it was just separating the goal from the risk management element. So the goal was to emerge safely, and if you had an issue on the drive in the approach in terms of he forgot his mirrors, that would be under risk management. So you would note it and you would say, okay, I noticed you didn't check your mirrors there. Next time, how are you going to remember that? Or would you like some help remembering that?
Okay.
You wouldn't be changing your goal, but you do still need to watch and make sure that the rest of it is being carried out, because this is a approaching test standard student, but because they were concentrating on the emerging, they forgot about their mirrors. Yeah. So it's helping them achieve their goal by managing the risk, and that's what you'd be doing.
Yeah, no, that's been a great help, that bit, the management risk and how you break that down, or way to achieve the goal. So
absolutely.
Brilliant.
Brilliant. See you this afternoon, Nick.
Yeah, see you later. Bye-bye.
See you in an hour.
Nick, before you go.
Hi.
At some point, we will try to give you a clarification of that and have an actual look at the model of goal setting and risk management. Yeah, so that might help you a lot.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
See you later.
Hey, see you all.
So what does the scan show?
Because the lining of your womb is thick, which means you're going to have a bleed soon. This is like just wait. And it's like we can't give you the Provera, you have to wait 6 weeks until your.
What is it? There's no ovulation taking place.
I don't know.